Hello, everybody, and welcome to our third live Lift Off, our Lift Up Women in Life Sciences event. We can't believe Rosie, my co host, and I have got nearly 800 attendees register our live event today. So, thank you so much. If this is the first time that you have joined our Lift Up live event, then we really want to encourage that everybody that's joining audience wise today, that you put within the news feed and the comments on the right hand side where you're coming from. So a simple hello, a wave, where you're coming from, your position, perhaps the industry that you're working within, or your practice. And most importantly, because we've got an amazing lineup of key speakers today, and we've got a live Q&A session that's going to be taking place, we really want to encourage you to pop in a capital Q before a question. So it will really help Rosie and I navigate kind of in the comments and the news feed all the fabulous questions that I'm sure you're going to have for our key speakers. So yes, Rosie and I, we've been looking at the attendees list. We've got people literally, haven't we, dialing all over the globe. So it's a real kind of international exposure and reach.
Yep,
So
we've
what
got we've got people coming in now
already
from Cheryl from Cleveland, Ohio. Welcome, great to have you here. We've got Glenn here from. Oh, sorry, it's moving so quick. There are
Miami,
so many people
Florida. I
coming.
know. We got Gina from in the biopharma industry. Got Ula from Copenhagen. Wow, it's moving so fast. It's actually almost
There
hard
we
to,
go.
to read. But thank you so much. Look, this is what this building this community is all about. It's about inspiring, connecting, and championing women in the life sciences industry. Our mission is really simple. And it's been a phenomenal amount of response we've had since our first live event in September. We've got a real core team of ambassadors here within Fraser Dove. So what I'm really keen to do is, before we bring in our four key speakers, which are really eager and excited to share with you their introductions and their career journeys to date, both Rosie and I will do a very top line introduction into ourselves. So I'm Louise Williams. I'm the operations director here at Fraser Dove International. I've been in staffing for about 17 years, joined in 2005, and I've had the pleasure of being in the life sciences industry since 2014, so around 9 years now, being a clinical and medical recruiter before moving into managing and directing teams. So it gives me great passion to continue working in the life sciences space and building this amazing community out. So Rosie, do you want to share a little bit of an introduction into yourself?
Sure. Thanks everyone for joining. Obviously, I'm Rosie. I've been a consultant at Fraser Dove for 2 years, and previously worked for Boston Scientific in the medical devices arm. Working within interventional oncology, I was surrounded by some absolutely phenomenal female leaders, and that's why I am an ambassador of Lift Up, as I feel everyone should have a role model to look up to at that early part of their career. But really looking forward to chatting with you all today. More people coming through now. We've got
No.
Branca's first time with us from Madrid, and she works in the pharma industry.
Yep.
We've got
Brittany from Houston.
Alexandra
Yep.
coming through. She leads the global diversity, equity, and inclusion at a fintech, which is really exciting. And the comments are flying in. We are going to try and get around to you all as much as possible today.
Yes.
But if you have a question for the live Q&A, don't forget to put a capital Q at the beginning. But I think without further ado, we
Yeah.
should get
I
some of our
think
guests involved.
Yeah, absolutely, Rosie. We've got a great level of engagement and people dialing in already. So we've got our four key speakers that we would love to bring in to this live panel session. Rosie, would you be able to enter them in for us?
Of course, in they come now.
So we've got Kevin, we've got Iris, we've got Jelani, and we've got Deborah. Thank you so much, the four of you, for joining us here today. Deborah, let's kick off with yourself. Would you be able to give us a introduction to yourself, your background, your career, your journey, and also, really importantly, why joining the Lift Up community was so important to you, and why you were keen to become a live key speaker today with us?
Thank you, Louise. Appreciate the opportunity to be on today. Deborah Wild. I'm CEO of a cell therapy CDMO company called Cellipont Bioservices. I've been in biotech over 35 years, and really the reason why I wanted to join the Lift Up community and be on here today is that it's so important, not only to have female mentors. Most of my mentors have been female and male. But that my responsibility and leaders' responsibility is to help other people, lift them up, give them opportunities. The other important thing I wanted to talk about and share is how asking for your next opportunity is really important, and how you ask for that opportunity. Either exposure to something you're interested in, or a next level, that kind of thing. So in a mentoring capacity, I think that it's important to be a part of these communities. Pleasure to be here, and I'm open to any questions you all have.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Deborah, for sharing. And we really love having you a part of this community. The conversations we alone have had over the last couple of weeks have been really, really insightful. So thank you, Deborah. And then Iris, are you able to give us a similar introduction and why joining the Lift Up community was so important for you?
Of course. Thank you for having me on this really important session. Hopefully, one of many interactions. I am currently Chief Therapeutics Officer at 11 Therapeutics, where we marry between two revolutions, the RNA therapeutics and AI. Um, and I'm based currently in Boston, which is the second time in my career that I moved into the US. Been in Israel twice in between. So my career, as well as my life, has been nothing but linear, and that is certainly not for lack of planning. It's actually for the ability to be um, supported by mentors and by the community, having the exposure, being supported and encouraged
Mhm.
to take opportunities and um, to seize those opportunities. And one of the so I think my career path often helps people think, yes, there are many ways to progress. um, Even though my motivations have always been the same, I've always wanted to develop therapeutics for patients and to better the lives of patients. But I started thinking only as a physician I could do that. And so I did basically this move and interaction between an MD PhD program, which I didn't finish as an MD. I ended up a PhD, been in the industry and basically with all the different types of stakeholders. And during that, having 4 kids. And so
Yeah.
I think it's really important to reflect to women that you don't have to choose one or the other. Yes,
Yeah.
it's hard. Yes, you need to be creative. Yes, you need support. But if you're dedicated and you create the support system around you, it is doable. Just follow
Yeah.
your heart and be serious about it. And so, as you can hear, I'm
Yeah.
pretty
Passionate.
adamant and passionate, and happy to share more
Yeah, I love
during
that.
the discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much, Iris. I really appreciate that honest and humble career approach. So lovely to have you as well joining our panel today. And Kevin, it'd be lovely to have a top line introduction into yourself. Obviously, one of our key male allies. So thank you so much for attending today. Would you be able to give the audience a bit of an introduction?
Absolutely. Thanks, Louise, and thank you everybody for the opportunity to be here today. I'm Kevin Malabisky. I recently founded KPM Consulting, a consulting company focusing in the drug development and device field. Prior to that, I co-founded a biotech company called Revelar Biotherapeutics and spent the last 30 or so years in the drug development space, both in big pharma and biotech, primarily working in drug development, regulatory, and quality. Your question in terms of why it's important for me to be here, I actually have two things. I've really reflected on this a lot, and it's part of my DNA. A big part of it is my first role out of undergraduate in the laboratory, I worked for a big pharma company in the lab. My boss at that time was a female who was incredibly inspirational for me through my career, and really, when I think back, really jettisoned my career in drug development. So she played an incredible role for me. But equally important, and I would even argue more importantly, I'm the very proud father of three women. I would say girls, but they're three women now, three seniors. I
Growing up so
have
fast.
one who's a senior at the in a university who's getting ready to go out into the real world,
Yeah.
and I have a set of twins who are seniors in high school getting ready to go to university, and listening to them and experiencing through their eyes and through their lens what they're seeing and hearing and experiencing as they get ready either to enter the university or enter into the real world, and the feelings that they have of being women moving into, and all of them are moving into the scientific spaces, whether it's life sciences or social sciences, the sort of the feeling of intimidation, the feeling that they're fighting an uphill battle already before they've even gotten there, just based on their gender, frankly broke my heart and really opened my eyes to an opportunity to really, hopefully, to provide some additional insights, mentoring, and advice to women and others in this field. So again, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, no, thank you, Kevin. And you've worked obviously in the bio space for 30, 35 years, and therefore you'll know that there's only about 8% of females that actually make up CEOs in the bio industry globally, which is just an incredibly low percentage. And albeit we've come an awful long way, obviously, in the last few decades, we've clearly got still quite a way to go. But it's truly inspiring, and that's what this community is all about. And we created Lift Up for that reason. It's about championing and inspiring these younger generations, right from academia, people that are in university or leaving university, joining the life sciences space. So hopefully these conversations are really going to support them. So thank you, Kevin, for your introduction. And Jelani, it'd be lovely to hear on yourself and your introduction, obviously your career, and why Lift Up was important for you to join as a key panelist today.
Thank you very much, Louise, and thanks also, Rosie. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. I'm Gilani Briones. I'm currently Senior Vice President for Quality EHS, or Environment, Health, and Safety and Sustainability at Excelia. I've been in the pharmaceutical industry for 23 years. 21 of such is in a leadership role of increasing responsibility. Being a woman of color myself, I firmly believe that everyone, despite of their background, gender as well, deserves to be treated equally, to feel included and that they belong. And that is really the reason why I believe in diversity, inclusion, and belonging, and why I readily said yes when I was asked to join Lift Up. I'm definitely happy to be with this distinguished panel here, and to share my experience as well in my career. Another reason why I have said immediately when invited here is that people have also helped me in my career or believed in me when I was younger. And this is one of the ways that I do in order to give back. Another is mentoring internally and external colleagues as well. So looking forward to the discussion today.
Excellent. No, thank you so much, Shalani, for the introduction. And I do know that you're running the belonging and diversity inclusion in your current company at the moment. So thank you very much for being part of Lift Up today. So I think we've got some good questions, some good engagement coming through. I think a few people have asked around agenda and topic. This is similar to our first Lift Up live broadcast, where we're trying not to run too specific on a agenda as such. So please feel free in the comments at the side to ask this panel any form of question. It could be gender parity, it could be managing imposter syndrome, it could be looking at career progression and development, essentially, the panelists here today have combined, got around a lifetime's worth of life sciences experience. So, they've have experience navigating different career journeys and challenges. So now's the time to ask them questions. That perhaps your experience at the moment, and they could maybe give some advice and thoughts around.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so. And while the questions come in, again, more people are joining us from all over the world. Greetings from Chicago here and Houston, Texas. We've got quite a few coming in from the US, but also from Canada as well. Remember, guys, if you're asking a question today, please do put a Q before your question and we can get to it.
yes.
Um,
So I've
here's,
got a question that's, I think, come through from one of our ambassadors, and one of the questions here was, if there was one significant challenge that outweighs the rest for you currently at the moment, what would it be? Um, and Deborah, I think I'll come to you with that one. So, what's sort of the biggest challenge, or what's kind of keeping you up at night, would you say, at the moment?
I think the biggest challenge, especially in manufacturing facilities that manufacture, whether it being a therapy company, pharma, or CDMOs, is employees.
Hmm.
It's a very competitive market. It's very difficult to find entry level scientific personnel. We have many training programs that we've instituted here to try to, from military. If you don't know my background, I'm a veteran in the military myself, but from military training to get into biotech to, someone that works at Starbucks to move into biotech and entry level positions. We don't have an issue really with PhD scientists. It's more kind of the entry level people. And that's just, I'm hearing that across the board. And I think then the other thing is, I call myself sometimes an old dog, but it's tough to find the old dogs that haven't retired. I mean, that's like a dirty word for me. I don't ever want to retire. I may, do something else, but not retire. But I think it's hard to find the experienced people that want to roll up your sleeve and build a company instead of working at a company where you kind of just maintain day to day. So those growth companies are everywhere. They're really
Yeah.
exciting. That's one of my passions.
Hmm.
But it's just hard to find, both ends of those spectrums and those employees. So that's what
Of
keeps me
course.
up at night for sure.
For talent. Okay, lovely. Thank you for sharing that, Deborah. And a question for you, Kevin. What kind of key role do you feel that males have to play, I guess, in the life sciences industry with really trying to support closing this gender gap? What do you feel?
Wow, that's
I
that's a
know
great
that's a
that's a
big
great
question, isn't
question.
it?
Yeah, and it's one that sitting around the dinner table every night, listening to some of
Yeah.
the discussion topics that the girls bring up is very parallel to that. I think a couple of things. One is, I think historically, and I can say this because I'm a guy, right? Guys, want to come in and we're fixers. We want to fix things, and we want to fix things immediately, and we want to do it ourselves. And we don't want to include other people. We just want to head down, barrel through. And I think when I look back at my career and I look back at the opportunities that maybe I've had, as well as those that I've missed out on, it's not taking the time to include others. It's not taking the time to consider others' opinions and others' experiences, and running quickly to try to put out the fire before you
Hmm.
really realize where the fire is at. So
Hmm.
maybe it's a bit cliche-ish, but I think, to
Yeah.
answer your question, I think it's really around, we as men have to be less eager to go and fix the problem ourselves immediately, and more willing to take a step back and
Hmm.
consider the broader opportunities that may be around us in terms of resources and people.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, thank you very much, Kevin. And I might ask, without it being controversial, I'm going to flip it onto the other side of the fence, and I'm going to ask you, Shalini, what do you feel that males need to, what kind of role they really need to be playing, perhaps more of, to close this gender gap?
Yeah, it was actually in a way linked to what earlier. And for me, I think males could help in this by mentoring female talents, but
Hmm.
at the same I'm looking at this as someone who could be a family member or your daughter, and thinking, what would you do if this talent is your family member or your daughter? And
Mhm.
then give every support that you could give. It's a very down to earth, I think, but having two girls as well at home, that's what
Yeah.
I do. I mean, what will I do for anyone if I want to bring them up, be it a boy or be it a male or a
Mhm.
female? How
Mhm.
will I support them if they are my family member?
Yes, I like
Yeah.
that. That's a really good way of thinking about it, isn't it? And putting yourself in almost their shoes in that position. No, I really like that. Okay, and
I'm just
Iris.
looking.
Sorry, Rosie, you
I was
you
just
go.
going to say
Yes.
we've got a question here from the audience, which is quite an
Mhm.
interesting one,
Mhm.
and it's about imposter syndrome. So, from your experience and the level that you guys have got to, what is it? What are your thoughts or experience with imposter syndrome? And I guess we'll ask Iris.
Sure. Happy to be first. So I think uh, the imposter syndrome is an important topic to talk about, because I think that it is very real, and yet there's lots of maybe myth around it. So every male I know also has imposter syndrome. It's not
Mhm.
just women.
Mhm.
Um, Everyone who's ambitious and going through the stages and growing up in their career to a new set of responsibilities will feel somewhat imposter syndrome. It's okay. It means you're stepping into a space that is, that's not your comfort zone. It's good. Take risks,
Mhm.
learn, make it a reason for you to be even more diligent about doing your homework and coming prepared and reaching out for help and expanding.
Mhm.
I actually think it's a good thing, and I still feel it in my career pretty much every time I make that move, and I almost seek it because
Mhm.
again I feel that this is how I know that I'm learning. Obviously, there are ways that it needs to be managed. So um, if you feel that you're having that feeling,
Mhm.
try to understand what it's coming from. It may be a perception that is only yours. It happens a lot with the more junior people that I mentor. Um, it just their own perception. Nobody around them really thinks that im- they're
Going
imposing.
through that, yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
in most of the areas, and it's important to understand and help a person understand where that perception comes from, and if it's really associated with a bias in gender, a
Mhm.
bias in maybe moving between industries. And there are many reasons one could have that, actually be in an environment that actually um, imposes that type of
Yeah.
perception. And if you have a good mentor that helps you uh, untangle this, you will be able to get out of it. I can't emphasize enough how important is it
Mhm.
is to have a mentor that you can truly be vulnerable with. I think that
Mm.
Yeah.
vulnerability is really
Mhm.
a leadership quality that we should all embrace.
Yeah. No, thank you for that,
Amazing.
Iris. Yeah, I think that's something that really came out of our last live, wasn't it, Rosie, about these mentors and coaches. And it was about building trust and a really strong relationship with your coach and your mentor. And actually, I think the majority of feedback that was coming back is often or not, it's quite good to build up a mentor or a coach kind of relationship that's actually outside of your immediate connections, so it's not maybe too close to home from a work colleagues or a current workplace environment, and not to be afraid to ask for help, which I think is kind of what you were touching upon, which is really, really critical. Kevin, yes, you've
Someone.
got something to
Oh,
share with that.
Yeah, I really like this
Mm,
this piece of it because I think it really touches upon a couple of really critical areas that are linked, and one of it is, when I think about coming up through my career and I look at my mentees that are coming up through their careers, there are two big roadblocks that I think people hit, and the first is having the confidence in yourself to be able to do whatever it is you're going to do. It could be whether it's a new project, a new whatever, it doesn't matter, but having that self confidence and having a network around you that can build that confidence and have your back. I think the other is not being afraid to fail. If you can introduce me to somebody who's never failed, I think it would probably be the only person in the world, right? They don't exist. And if somebody says they've never failed, I
yeah.
would I would run away from them as quickly as possible because they're
Yes.
very phony. So having that again, it really leads to self confidence. It leads to a network and a safety net, and not being able to fail and being able to move forward and grow is
Mm,
so
mm.
critical.
And it's hard though, isn't it? It's sometimes having that self-belief and confidence. That's not what you often find with people that do struggle with imposter syndrome and obviously potentially high levels of anxiety. So, that is a challenge, but often or not, it's the ones that are hugely confident are not afraid of the fall. So I think it's, yeah, very, very relevant point there, Kevin. Sorry, Rosie, were you saying that there was
Yeah, there's a few other questions coming in.
brilliant.
And it's interesting. A topic that's, widely discussed is the particular fallout when it comes to, it's the question here from Alexandra, where she speaks on in tech, we see 50% of women leave before the age of 35. And this is due to the poor culture, slow progression, means the talent pool is small to choose from at senior levels. And she's wondering whether you guys, where you're sat and then the positions you're in and the journeys you've had, do you see the same challenges and what do you see as key solutions? Now, the question's big, so I'm going to remove it from the screen while we talk through it. But Jelani, I'd love to understand, are you seeing some of these challenges and what do you feel are the solutions?
Yeah, definitely at Excelia, we are seeing the same challenges because we actually have a 2025 target, soon to be 2030,
Mhm.
whereby we want to be more than 45% of women in leadership positions. But with the recent years, we have also said that, okay, we would also like to have more than 45% on high potentials or talents and people whom we can groom up. The thing is that Excel is primarily still a manufacturing company. And in manufacturing, most of them are men, especially in the manufacturing operations, right? So we're trying to balance that with the other functions like in quality. My challenge is that I need to get more men to have more diversity in my leadership team, for example, and the R&D, for example, they also have more women in yeah in the employee level, so they could balance that with yeah on the global scale, so to speak, for the company in reaching our targets. But it is definitely a challenge, especially if you are within an industry where primarily are men. But there you can then check on at least having some tools like in recruitment, at least the top two could be both man and woman that you could choose from. Not because yeah of course you don't put a woman just to have just to reach that target, right? But to ensure that that woman actually is capable and is competent, that she could compete with the other candidate. So we're trying to implement such tools as well, just to make sure that yeah we would be able to balance off and also put more women in leadership going forward, but also in the high potentials or talents that we are grooming in the company.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's a difficult one because I've spoken about this before with people in the within the industry about that it's a tough argument because you don't want to be chosen just because you're a woman, and you
Mm.
don't want to go down that avenue, but you also want to have a fair fight for the seat at the table. Um, so Deborah, I'm going to kind of peel into that question and say, what would be your advice for anyone watching on how to reach a C-suite position or a senior position who's on the career ladder?
Sure, sure. And I have a comment a little bit about just with my experience. As a female, I left the workplace. I was a stay-at-home mom, believe it or not. I mean, I was this middle management, senior level management at Genentech in different places, leading manufacturing. I was around tables where I was the only female most 99% of the time. And I left that to be a stay-at-home mom. And the kind of the joke is about that is I almost lost my mind after about 3 or 4 years, realizing that I was the person who needs to work. I'm a quality mom, not necessarily a quantity mom. But when I came back into the workforce, I had to find my way back into kind of where I was and where I wanted to be. And that was a bit of a struggle. And it took some mentoring. It took some me asking for additional responsibility. I think, folks were saying doing your homework, putting yourself out there more, signing up for a number of things to get yourself out there and, ready for the next job. So I think that hones into my advice for how to reach the C-suite. I have to really put it on two things. One, I was never shy to ask for the level nor the salary. Somewhere along the line, it got embedded in my brain that if you don't ask, you don't get it. Mm-hmm. All they can say is no. And we'll give you this. And I see that over and over when I offer people positions, responsibilities, opportunities. That employee can always say no, or I can always say no, or come to some middle ground. So don't be afraid to ask for something that you want exposure to, so that gets you into the limelight for a C-suite position. And that's how I really got my first opportunity in C-suite. I think, the other thing is that, the volunteering, putting yourself out there. I've always said, if I'm not uncomfortable, something's wrong. I certainly deal with the imposter syndrome, the uncomfortable feelings, but if I'm not, it's like, oh, something's off. I'm not doing enough. I'm not for the people, for the business, for my investors, for myself. So I think that really it comes down to you need to do your part, asking for that opportunity. If you're in a situation, which I think all of us have been there, if you're in a situation where you're not being heard and you are doing your best and putting yourself out there and learning and researching, then it's time to have a serious conversation with yourself. Where do you belong? Where is it you want to go in your next step? And those aren't easy decisions. That's where a good mentor would be a wonderful opportunity to talk those things through, because likely they have been through that same situation.
Yeah, no, I think it's a saying that we use quite often within Fraser Dove. It's about being comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think it's constantly just trying to stretch yourself and put yourself out of your comfort zone, because you often, succeed further by doing so. So thank you for that, Deborah. I mean, it's interesting because you've obviously gone away, had children, had your maternity leave. You've now come back into the industry and you're now operating at C-suite level. If I can just ask you, briefly, how did you find that transition coming back in? Did you have to take a step back, or were you able to take a break and come back at the same level, or lateral move, or an increased move? What did that look like for you?
I actually came back consulting. Went from a very biotech manufacturing focused job to consulting within quality assurance and due diligence and things like that, where I had a lot of my know-how in. And then eased my way into a full-time job, which happened very quickly, probably faster than I expected at the time. My kids are now 21 and 19, so it's been a while ago. So it doesn't happen overnight, but I took steps so that I was okay with, myself and my family, but also I was hungry to get back in and looking for the right opportunity. So I took those consulting opportunities that ended up just being the gateway into that full-time job and succession from there.
Yeah, good advice. No, that's a good good advice for those that are potentially looking at getting back in after a career break or motherhood. So thank you, Deborah. There's a question here, Kevin, from Carly O'Rourke. So in relation to how female performance is perceived and measured, which trait of characteristic do you find is most commonly misunderstood by males and females when measuring female performance? So thank you
Boy,
very much for that question, Carly. That's a great question. So Kevin, I'm going to remove that from the screen. Hopefully, give us your thoughts in
put me on
regards
the
to
hot
that.
seat here. I love
I
it.
know.
No, it's a fantastic question. I think probably some of the most misunderstood, you know, characteristics when I compare across the genders is action. You know, how quickly do people react and how quickly do people act? Are you one to take a step back, assess a situation and being data driven before making a move? Are you willing to make a move quickly at a risk of it not being the right move or at the risk of being maybe perhaps disruptive to address a situation? And I think, not to stereotype, because everybody is different, and I've been in many different situations, male, female, it doesn't matter. But I think in general, you know, again, guys like to go in and we like to fix things quick, right? And not all of us are good at taking a step back and really assessing the situation. I think the misperception is when somebody isn't doing that, you know, that they either don't know what they're doing, or you know, they're the wrong person for the role, or whatever it might be. And you know, if they happen to be a female, you know, males tend to think, oh my gosh, you know, she's soft, she's emotional, she's looking more at soft skills versus, you know, the hard analytical, you know, cut your throat data, right, and actions. And I think one of the things I've learned, you know, again, both in my career and growing up in a household of four women, is it isn't black and white. It isn't one or the other. You know, the most successes that I've seen and that I've experienced is if you can find a blend to those two approaches. And that really speaks to having a team that's diverse, that's gender inclusive, that takes people with all kinds of different approaches and experiences and brings that into a high performing team.
Yeah, thank you,
Brilliant.
Kevin. Yeah, no, that's great. We've got some great questions coming through. So
Yeah,
thank you. Please keep them coming with a queue at the front, so it's easier for us to navigate.
I was
You know,
going to
Um,
say, oh, sorry, go ahead, Kevin.
no, I'm sorry. I was just gonna, you know, piggyback on something Deborah was saying that
mhm,
really I really liked. You know, in terms of when you look at coming back into a career, or even, you know, going back to the question about C-suite, I think two things. One is I would really reflect carefully. You know, if you're looking to get into the C-suite, you know, why? You know, why do you want to be there? You know, and if the answer, and you've got to be really honest with yourself. If the answer is title, salary, prestige, all of those things, I would abandon that approach very quickly, because the
yeah.
C-suite, although it has a nice title, usually comes with nice salaries, it also comes with incredible responsibility and accountability. That, you know, again, if that's something you're looking for, and from a career perspective, then I think number two, I would, you know, as Deborah said, I would really look very carefully at what skill sets are needed, both hard and soft, and work on a career path that gets you experience in those skill sets to bring valuation to the position and to the role.
Yeah, I love that. And it aligns with the question that was asked actually, is, you know, what does the being in the C-suite mean to you? And Iris, I'd love to also hear from your side, touching on Kevin's points as well, of course. You know, what does the C-suite mean to you, or what should it mean to someone who's looking to get there?
Sure. So I can say what it means to me. I can't, speak for others. I think people should be true to themselves and their motivations, and that's maybe the number one thing. Be very, very honest, transparent, genuine. Because when you're at the C-suite, you're constantly under the flash, under the limelight, in the company, in the house, and wherever you are, whatever you do, people look at you, people measure you, people, which is a great tool. I love it. I think it's a way to role model values. It's a way to role model, I mean, what we're doing here today.
Mhm.
um, and it's a way to basically, um, for me, it's a way to say, I believe there is lots of good that I can bring to a therapeutics organization. I think I can bring certain strengths, I can bring certain mindsets, I bring a lot of network, I bring all these things that I know how to do, and I believe they can make people's life better. And I know that I am at the flip side, that I'm going to need to take a lot of risks and a lot of heat, and be need to be very humble about getting criticism, which is not easy. It took me a long while throughout my career to be better and better about that, and make sure that I continue to be true to the mission, and continue to see the greater good of the company and its outcomes above me. So there's a lot of reasons
Yeah.
to kind of filter through, make sure you're doing what you're doing for
Yeah.
a good reason, and then um, it's almost every waking hour is um, you have that in the back of your heart. It's in back of your head, kind of with
Hmm.
your family. Every even when I'm here, I'm thinking about the sick kid in the other room and the kid that's there, because it's part of you, and it's part of what you reflect
Hmm.
to the world, how you can
Yeah, it has to be
do
very
good.
personal and meaningful. No,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's lovely. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Iris. Um, it's a very similar. We've got some question. We've got a question here from a somebody who's anonymous, but it's a great question, so I wanted to share. So, can anybody share a story on a specific inflection point in their career that they think was a turning point or a really big moment that changed their path? And I really like that because I was previously thinking about a mindset or a behavior that's perhaps happened in your career that's been that kind of life changing defining moment. So Shalani, I'll go to you first if that's okay, if you want to share us your thoughts with that.
Yeah. And here I'm going to be vulnerable and where I failed at one point in my career. I
Yeah.
was actually on a very fast track in my career. I became a manager at the age of 24, became a
Mhm.
vice president at 27. And at
Wow.
that time, I think, yeah, inside of me, I felt, well, I can do anything. Just give me something and I will do it, right? And then at the age of, I think I was 32 or something, I've been given the possibility to lead a Danish organization in one of the companies I worked for before. And because of my naivety, maybe I did not ask for what the preliminary requirements were. I didn't know you need to speak Danish, and I didn't speak Danish. The only Danish word I know at that time is no, right or not. Uh, and learning a language and at the same time moving to a different area, which I have no background about. So learning fast enough could not be faster. Danish
Hmm.
is not an easy language to learn, by the way. That was, I would say, a fast failure as well for me, because as much as I wanted to perform, I was not fast enough to learn the language and at the same time learn the organization, learn the people, and
Hmm.
be able to follow the different discussions, right? I was pregnant at that time when we agreed that maybe that was not a good fit, and I almost have to lift myself back
Yeah.
from a really bottom, where
Hmm.
I said, okay, what will happen to my child? What will happen to me? I don't have much network in Denmark.
Hmm.
But that's when I said to myself, okay, it's never too late. You're still young.
Hmm.
Go back, start from scratch. That's why we moved. My family and I moved to Germany,
Hmm.
and came back again, right? But at that time, it was really a big slap in the face, I would say, because I thought I was so good. And then
Yeah.
I realized I was not, right? But that is always a good reminder for me
Yeah.
that depending on the circumstances, people could be good, but it doesn't define me. Yeah, it has taught me
Yeah.
how to be humble It taught me
Yes, I was going to say
to
humble.
be very I mean, to also realize what I can and cannot do. And
Mhm.
but I think I've moved on. I've learned a lot
It's
from that.
learning from those experiences though, right? Which is
Exactly.
the absolute key to development, isn't it? Development and personal progression. So no, thank you for sharing. And Deborah, I'll ask you the same question. Has there been any kind of monumental, moments or inflection points throughout your career that you've really felt has, kind of pivoted your role or your career journey?
I was thinking through this. There's one pivotal. Early in my career, I was given an opportunity to be supervisor for the very first time. You go from being a single contributor.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, when you make that jump, you make less money. You take on more responsibilities, as Iris was talking about, being a leader. But that opened my eyes into leadership. I had already been a leader in the military, so it wasn't that foreign, but it was really a shift for me for my career. I would say that's one of them. I think another one really has to do with maturity. And I don't want to share any names of companies or
Mhm.
anything, but in a due diligence meeting I was head of quality, and my team provided too much information, information that wasn't double checked, information that, really should have been vetted. And that's a tough lesson to learn. I had been in regulatory inspections, never had actually done anything like this before, where we shared information without vetting it. So that taught me, I think we were talking about being humble. It also taught me to double check, communicate. Never be too shy. There's no such thing as over communicating a plan. Communication out to, either a higher source, an investor, a board, or something like that. It's best to work through a strategy for things like that. So that was, to me, I know it doesn't quite fit into, getting promoted or not or anything like that, but it's a life lesson learned that this is serious business when it comes to either patient therapies or business transactions like that. And you really need to check your sources and check the information.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think thank you for thank you for sharing that, Deborah. We've also got some great questions. I think one that's just cropped up here as well from Erica, which really keen to share with you always. How does a mid-level career professional determine what the soft and hard skills are needed for C-suite? Can you provide your opinion? So Kevin, I mean, you've obviously been in the industry for 35 years. You've worked up at very senior levels. What's your take on the hard and soft skills that's kind of needed, I guess, to operate at that level?
Yeah, I think I'll answer the question backwards. I
Hmm.
think we've talked about mentoring, and we've talked about having a network of people, coaches that you can work with. And for me, my parlay into the C-suite really was pivoted based on the relationships that I had with people in the C-suite who were older and more experienced with me. So I had people coaching and mentoring me once I reflected on why I wanted to be there, and the reasons and what I could contribute. So I think having that guidance from experienced folks that have either been there or are there is critical. In terms of sort of the secret recipe of what it is, every company is going to be different. The valuations of every company, the needs of every company are going to be incredibly different, even within a sector. If you just say, well, biotech C-suites are all the same. No, they couldn't be more different, right? And I think, for me, one word that has come up in the last question that I think we as C-suite folks and we as leaders have to do a better job at is humility,
Yes.
is personal
Yes.
humility, and recognizing the value that others bring to the table, right? I think those are some of the softer skills, and sometimes those are actually more valuable than the hard skills. You can apply that same question to any position you're filling in your organization, right? You put a job description out, you get a bunch of resumes, you sort those resumes based on hard skills and experience, and then you start the interview process. If you didn't interview, you would think you would get a bunch of the same types of people. And in fact, you
Mhm.
get very, very heterogeneous people based on who they are and those softer skills. So soft skills, humility, empathy,
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
a willingness to work with others. Hard skills, experience goes an incredibly long way, right? You're never going to find the right person who has all the experience and who's been there and done that with everything. But having somebody who can take experiences that are somewhat related and build on those experiences and on their network to address a critical problem is really what we do in the
Yeah.
C-suite.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. I mean, that's it's a breath of fresh air. Obviously, coming and working for a global talent consultancy, that's what we're coming up again, time and time again. Especially, I'd say, in the last sort of 3 to 5 years, those soft skills are often becoming even more paramount and important to a degree than the hard skills. And not identifying somebody that's necessarily ticks all the 100% or boxes within the hard skill. Perspective, finding somebody that is really driven to your company's values is really, really important. So thank you for that, Kevin.
I,
You go,
If I
yeah, I was
Rosie.
may,
going to say, oh, sorry, go ahead, Iris. I was going to say, has anyone else got anything to comment on that? So go ahead.
indeed, I wanted to double click actually on the on your last comment. I think by definition, you cannot be in the C-suite and actually have full professional experience in everything that is under you. If you are, then maybe it's super early, or it's the company perhaps doesn't have a good perception of what it needs to do. By definition, you need to find that balance between the areas that you yourself grew in from. You have this very, very clear, in-depth, hands-on understanding and experience, and those areas where you basically over time inherited because they are related, they are connected, they're collaborated, and you need to find the skills to not bias your management and decision making of over these different functions. And I think that as a C-suite, at the end of the day, completely agree, it's super, super different across different companies. But accountability, collaboration, because you need to collaborate with your other C-suite, with your board, with the externals. If you are not a collaborator, it's a problem.
Hmm.
And communication, any type of communication, being comfortable in a setting like this where a queue comes in without being prescribed, being able to answer to a an employee that is in distress and needs advice. You need to be the kind of the jack of all trades, and
Hmm.
be there for everyone. And you need to appreciate that sometimes you don't have privacy, or your time is not yours, and
Yeah.
that comes with the territory, kind of like
Hmm.
kids.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Iris. So
Mhm.
thank you. Great question as well, Erica. So thank you for sharing. There's been a really good one as well come through from Claire. Britain. So thank you very much for this. But when current C-suiters came up, it was likely they and their superiors were in the office. With remote working, many of those organic opportunities to be seen have gone. How can we better foster those opportunities? So, I mean, I think this has really become far more evident since obviously COVID, and a lot more people working from home. And even post COVID, the continuation of that remote working is probably more than we've ever seen it. So, how is it best to kind of get seen, get heard if you're not always in the office or you're working in remote locations across, internationally? Shalini, we'll come to you. What are your thoughts with that?
Yeah, I'm thinking actually performance always speaks, right? And that is regardless where you are located, your performance speaks for yourself. And
Hmm.
then the soft skills is really what brings performance. Yeah, for me, when you are in this level, as a, in a senior VP reporting to the CEO, basically you need to be good in tapping people's talents, because as Iris said earlier, we don't have everything, right? We cannot be experts in everything. And we usually see people when they are taking the initiative and joining other activities apart from their area. For me, taking initiative really is a good sign that this
Hmm.
person is ambitious and would like to do something more in addition to the performance, of course, in the current role. And then it always helps to have people you talk with who could speak good about you, right? Because we also listen to how other people view you. So it's not only being good to the people in the C-suite, but also
Hmm.
being good to your colleagues, or being good to your to the other people in other departments who you collaborate with. You cannot be two-faced because it will
Hmm.
come out anyway at the end. So you really have to be sincere through and through,
Yes. Yes.
performing, and yeah, take initiative.
Yeah, take initiative. I think speak up. I think something Alexandra has mentioned here around, coming back to the humility piece, but obviously is saying that if women are excluded from key meetings or social ops, then they have to self-advocate to be noticed and self-advocate strongly at times to push open those doors. And I think that is about having that inner voice and the confidence to kind of step up. Something you'd obviously touched upon, Deborah, that you'd always kind of not been so fearful of perhaps throughout your career, and that is asking questions, whether it is a pay increase or if it is a progression, next step, development opportunity. So how important do you think it is about women maybe just being a little bit more vocal? What are your thoughts with that, Deborah?
Absolutely. I have a couple of thoughts around this. So I do believe you need to be more vocal, but you can't just be vocal and then not accomplishing your job. Plus, I always told dress and act and perform for the job you desire in the future, right? So you're
Mhm.
always kind of outdoing
Like
yourself
that.
a bit. That becomes noticed. I do think that it's difficult now, but people are still very relationship based. People are going to think about you and remember you, whether it's someone that works for you, a coworker, the janitor, your boss, if you have a relationship with them. It is difficult. Sometimes you have to just get on the phone, but have a relationship. Someone told me way back in my 20s that, if you want, talk to your boss about what they like to do. They like to
Mhm.
fish, race cars, ride horses, read books. I got
Yeah.
lucky. My bosses typically read books. So I'm like, oh, what are you reading? And then so that's just, if I don't know what to say, that was kind of, hey, what are you reading today? Where are you traveling today? That kind of thing. So
Yes.
that it still comes down to a relationship with people,
Yeah.
whether it's at
Yeah.
work, at home.
Yeah.
We're always selling. I don't know if you guys have been in some of these coaching sessions where really we are, in our relationships, it takes an active intention to
Hmm.
build those relationships and that thread
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant bit of advice, and I'm actually can't quite believe we've got nearly 3 minutes until we end our live session. It always crazily goes very, very fast. So perhaps just sort of in a 30-60 second summary, Kevin, what one piece of advice would you give, or do you give your three children, that you would share with the audience today in terms of navigating a career in the future?
Yeah, great question. So the one piece of advice I would give that I wish I had given my younger self was to have confidence and believe in yourself.
Yeah.
That you're going to run in. And it doesn't matter, boy, girl, male, female. You're always going to be challenged, and you're always going to be looked at as not enough for what it is that you want to do. So have
Yeah.
the confidence in yourself, believe in yourself,
Hmm.
you know, have a safety net, have mentors, have coaches, have people that can advocate on your behalf. But to
Love
me,
that.
self-confidence is really
Is
important.
key. 100%. Thank you so much for that, Kevin. Shalani, anything to add to that one piece of advice you'd give your former self?
Yeah, for me, it is really don't be too critical
Hmm.
on yourself. I think I have driven myself too much in many instances that I'm actually told I'm yeah, this
Can be hard on yourself. Yeah.
Duracell rabbit on steroids, and it's like not that.
Love that.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
brilliant.
don't be too critical on yourself.
Okay.
You are good as you are,
Yeah.
and that goes for everyone.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Shalani. Iris, anything to add to that? One bit of advice you'd give your former self?
So not to repeat the other two, which I really like. Just so up those. I think at the end of the day, especially in this small ecosystem we're in, kind of all we have is our reputation. So be very intentional be rigorous, do your homework, really know your stuff.
Yeah.
And then with that, charge forward, be proactive.
Love that. Resilience as well. I love that. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
Well, I think we're pretty much under a minute now until the end of our live session. So I just want to thank all of the audience. Thank you so much for attending today. Thank you for all your questions. If there are any questions that we have unfortunately not had the chance to answer, we will certainly go back into our Lift Up linked page and we will try to answer as many as possible. This live broadcast is going to be shared on all social channels. So you'll be able to watch the recording, you'll be able to forward it through to any colleagues, any friends. And we are going to be kicking off again early January in the new year with our fourth live broadcast. So we can't wait to get going on that one post Christmas. But thank you so much for all our wonderful key speakers, Deborah, Iris, Kevin, and Jelani. Excellent amount of insight into your careers, advice, and I'm sure you've inspired many. So thank you so much, and thank you to my co-host Rosie.
Thank you, guys.
Many
Thank
thanks
Thanks.
to
you.
you and to the
Thank you very
audience.
much.
Thanks,
Take care.
everyone.
Bye
Bye.
Bye.
bye. Bye.